Welcome back, Retail Bulletin avid viewers. Hope you had a nice break in between session 1 and this session 2 that we're just about to begin. What a way to kick off a new year of events for us this morning. Brilliant opener from Graham over at Asda with that presentation, and a fabulous panel. Again, thank you to all of those people that appeared. And talking of fabulous panels, I'm going to introduce this lovely bunch of people to you in just a moment, and you'll see we've got another great lineup for you. If you've just joined us this morning, you will be able to see this morning's session that you missed online. We'll be sharing the link to that in due course, so don't worry, you will not miss anything. You'll have plenty of time to catch up. And this session itself, indeed all of today's sessions are recorded, so yeah, you can watch them at your leisure. Don't forget, we have got a brilliant program of events, not just today but throughout the year. And if you weren't with us this morning, you wouldn't have heard me share that the TRB is 20 this year. The Retail Bulletin celebrating its 20th birthday. And so we thought we'd do something really radical, and we're going to have a conference, an actual conference where we stand in a building together and rub shoulders and drink tea and coffee and talk about all things retail. And then in the evening of the first night, we're going to have a party. So it's going to be a great event, and we hope you can join us. Do look online at theretailbulletin.com for more details, or simply search the Retail Conference and you'll find it there as well. It's happening, not for a while yet, sorry to get you excited, 8th of November at the Birmingham NEC, and it's a 2-dayer, 8th and 9th of November, overnight in the middle. Might involve a few drinks on the first night, I would assume, but yeah, we're going to have a good old knees up to celebrate the Retail Bulletin turning 20. Let's get back to matters at hand, though. This session 2, e-commerce innovation, kindly sponsored by Findologic, and we actually have Steve from that business with us today. And I'm going to ask Steve, if I can, kick off with you, and please introduce yourself.
Hello, everyone. My name's Steve. I am the Chief Revenue Officer of Findologic. For those of you who don't know, Findologic are a search and navigation solution. And we have one of our customers here today, Gareth, which I'm sure he'll introduce himself later on. I've been in the reason why I'm here today, obviously, is because, you know, we are sponsoring this event, but more so I've been in the marketing technology vertical for the last 20 years. And so I feel like I have a little bit of experience in trying to figure this all out with my customers. Obviously, I've always been on the vendor side that has provided solutions to customers, but many different types of solutions over the years. So hopefully I can provide a little bit of valuable information today that will help everyone in the audience.
Thank you, sir, and I'm sure you will indeed. So thank you for joining us, and again, thank you to Findologic for their sponsorship today. Gareth, tell us about you then.
Hi, yeah, I'm Gareth. I'm the e-commerce and digital marketing manager for Pour Moi. We're a fashion and lingerie company based out of Brighton. I'm really pleased to be here today. It's a really exciting topic. Generally my background's in the technology side of e-com, so product ownership and that sort of thing. I'm always looking at better ways to automate the problem. So it's a really interesting topic for me.
We had another Brighton founded business on this morning, Bird and Blend Tea, actually. Yeah, and it's good to be have another Brighton business with us for the second session as well. And thank you for joining us. Annie, tell us about you.
Hi, yeah, I'm Annie Lougher, and I work for the fashion brand Bella Freud. I've been at the company for 5 years, and I'm head of e-commerce and strategy.
Great to have you with us as well, and looking forward to hearing your insight. And Nidhima, last but not least, tell us about you.
Hi, everybody. So glad to be here. So I am the founder and CEO of 2 companies. The first one is My Beauty Matches. It's a price comparison website for beauty products with a personalized service. So if women don't know what to buy, they can take our beauty quiz and figure out what's the right product for them out of 10,000 brands and over 400,000 products. And the second business I have is Beauty Matching Engine. We provide a personalization solution to beauty companies such as L'Oreal or Douglas.
Great, and welcome back to a TRB panel. Great to have you with us as well. So this session is called e-commerce innovation. It's all about building engaging experiences across that 360-degree omnichannel ecosystem. How's that for a mouthful? But these guys will unpack it for you through some questions that we're going to be talking about and some topics that we're going to cover. As always, we love you to get involved at the Retail Bulletin. It's your webinar, so you need to get the takeaways that you want from it. So depending on what device you're using, there will be a Q&A button somewhere around your screen. Please do use it. And my job as the moderator is to make sure that every question that gets asked gets answered. You may have a specific question for one of the panelists particularly, or you may have a more general question. Both are fine. But yeah, put them in the Q&A and I will make sure you are heard. Okay, good. Let's kick things off. Steve, kick off with you and our sponsor. Bit of a mouthful, this question, but I'm going to go for it. How does an API-driven architecture assist in achieving online connectivity?
Wow, great mouthful question. So thank you for that, Darren.
Indeed. Thank you.
That. I would like to start that answer just by saying that I know from many customers that I speak to how hard it is to create flexibility on your front and your back end to be able to utilize many different technologies that allow you to enhance your customer's experience or journey. And so I think, I'm talking, I think for everyone who knows that actually they're wanting to try and get better at that and they have their own difficulties with their own infrastructures. I know that Gareth and I have spoken about this many times, about creating this flexible approach to be able to actually integrate with different types of technologies that allow you to be able to do that in a better way. And I also remember, again, I'm talking from many years ago where my first role was actually as a marketing manager, and I was in email marketing, and then I moved over to actually offering email marketing technologies to customers. And email marketing was a thing, and then we had SMS, and then from there we talked about the channel being online and how do we create recommendations and personalized approach to people online. And then it moved from that to those are just channels. Now we have to move to CDP because we have to manage that customer data. And I give you this example because we've moved from those things in the past, and now what we have is great CDP solutions. I'm sure that everyone knows who those are, but then we also have best of breed channels that plug into that CDP solution, right? So those are the things that we've evolved over time. We've created a CDP solution for all things, channels included, but now it's moving to we're wanting best of breed in email or whatever it may be, SMS, and we're wanting to be able to own and control that data through another type of solution. And it's the same thing here where we talk about our front end particularly, where we're actually wanting to be able to integrate our best of breed solutions, like for instance, Findologic, into the search and navigation solution. But there are sometimes restrictions on that if you have certain e-commerce platforms that are integrated. And so this whole thing about headless, this buzzword, and API driven approach actually makes this journey the ability to have more flexibility on actually integrating different parts or solutions in your actual front end that enables the customer's experience to be much more effective and hopefully get better conversion rates. So yeah, I think in those things, I think what has really enabled us through this API driven or this headless driven infrastructure or trend is just the flexibility it allows us to be able to find certain things in our framework where maybe customers are getting a little bit stuck, and in that area there are high bounce rates or maybe even low conversion rates, and use another technology that allows us to be able to solve that specific problem. So I think it's very much about flexibility, which allows us to drive better customer engagement.
That's the key word, isn't it? Flexibility. And on behalf of retailers who may be watching this and finding the whole kind of subject of API a little bit bamboozling, how can you help unpack it for them and make it simpler for them?
Gareth or me? Sorry, I think.
Oh, I was only going to chime in to say that I think the easiest way to think of it is this headless thing is kind of like how you remember everything didn't used to be USB and then it was really rubbish trying to make stuff plug in. Well, that's kind of what headless is trying to do for software, because when you couldn't plug your phone charger into something and you had to buy all these custom adapters and it was a total nightmare, that's obviously something that we all look forward to leaving behind forever, and it's only a few holdouts now. I think that's probably the easiest way of explaining it to a non-technical audience, but I'm not the technical person. Once it's got a buzzword with the API in it, I'm like, right, I need to involve the tech people, but I think that might be a way of helping people understand.
No, it's great. And I'm going to stay with you, Gareth, actually, and sort of come with you to your first question as well, because personalization is obviously a big subject under this header and this session today. And how important do you think that is delivering effective CX, this year and beyond?
Well, I'm going to have to admit I'm a little bit biased. I mean, I think it's crucial, but I mean, it's my background, so I've got a position on it. I do think it depends on the nature of the business in question. I was thinking a bit about this morning. I think those brands which have a relatively niche vertical offering need personalization less urgently. But if you're a brand that has a broad spectrum of offering across category or significantly differentiated customer segments, then I think it's absolutely critical. Like I said, I think it's crucial anyway. Research suggests that I think 80% of customers would be more likely to purchase if offered a personalized experience. And additionally, I think, as with so many parts of e-commerce, Amazon and say Netflix, YouTube are really setting customer expectations. And I think if you think about, I was thinking earlier about young people growing up with Spotify, and the fact that Spotify is so good at finding you music that you will like without you asking it to, is creating this culture of customers increasingly expect relevant content without us suggesting that we're personalizing it. They're not interested. But once you're used to everything in your sort of digital ecosystem being relevant to you, then it will be very jarring if we offer non-personalized experiences. So not only will I think it improve conversion, but also I think it's going to become increasingly important just to stay current in terms of customer expectations. What was the other thing I was thinking? Oh yeah, it's also relevant in terms of your on-site and your off-site experience, right? Because if you're thinking about when people are more or less likely to engage with ads, then at the end of the day, if you show them an irrelevant ad, then they're not going to click on it. I think personalization is absolutely critical for that. Showing someone a message that will relate to where they are in their purchasing journey and offering them a message that they're going to respond to on a personal level is just absolutely critical.
Thank you, sir. I'm going to go on to Annie now, if I may, and life at Bella Freud. I mean, you are the more premium end of the spectrum, if you like. So how have you been offering and maintaining a premium experience when it comes to e-com?
Yeah, so I think especially over the pandemic, we saw the need for much more of an experience over just a transactional shopping journey. So something that we really wanted to offer was wrapping the customer up in the brand aesthetic and giving them a reason to buy from us. So it becomes that question between best practice UX and the brand, which I think maybe would be a bit of a debate between everyone here. But I think that's something that we've really tried to do with the introduction of new content, category pages, a lot of storytelling, which I think is going to be a key thing going forward this year. But just being able to really offer the brand online, and it doesn't just have to be that online experience, but it comes down to your sort of your ads, your packaging, your post-purchase survey, your returns portal. All of those things are so important. Something that we found as well was that we were spending quite a lot of money on customer acquisition, especially in the pandemic, and it's now how we're going to retain those customers. So we found that our demographic was sitting between sort of 35 to 55. So by introducing things like Klarna and a lower price point product range, we've actually found our converting customer level out so that they're sitting more right across the board now, which is great because we've now got customers for a lifetime. And then similar to what Gareth said with personalization, that's something that's really key to us, offering personalized PLPs. Email marketing is our highest converting acquisition channel. So really just wrapping that customer up, really.
Excellent, thank you. Yeah, that Klarna offering it's been adopted by lots of online retailers, I think, as well, and customers have enjoyed that kind of extra little bit of help, I guess, to access brands in a more accessible way financially as well. We've certainly done that at Scrubbed and saw a good uptake of it as well. So good to hear. Thank you for that. I see the first questions in, but I will get to it. But I want to just do a first round of questions first, and then we'll start opening some things up to the panel as well. And Nidhima, you've been sat there so patiently waiting. So how do our audience, or how would you recommend our audience use AI automation to succeed, or share any best practice that you guys have got?
Well, at My Beauty Matches, at the end of the day, we're a startup. We launched like 6-7 years ago. We have still served over 32 million women. So we've served a lot of women in a short space of time. And, that's really been thanks to AI and automation. We won actually the AI award for best customer experience for Europe, beating Zalando, which was amazing, and Accenture, because at the end of the day, we're a startup. And really, what really helped us was the AI bit. So going back to what was mentioned previously here, talking about Spotify, it just knows what you're listening to, and it just knows what to recommend and what you're likely going to like to listen to. And the same with Netflix. Like, as soon as my mom comes to visit me, all my Netflix goes into like Bollywood or something, it completely changes everything. So if you offer a more personalized customer experience, but in a very seamless way, then it helps to retain that customer. So generally, that's really hard to do at scale if you have people having to set that all up manually. Currently, a lot of the personalization can happen online or an email. And if we're talking about omni-channel, that can also be connected to in-store experience, and data can be gathered there and then, put in the single customer data view and then affect the online and email experience too. However, it becomes a mess or a machine to maintain this. And the only way to really do that is not using A/B testing software tools, but actually either to build an AI solution in-house, which you can scale, whether it's number of brands, number of customers, number of countries, numbers of languages. It's impossible to provide a solution which is personalized not to a segment of customers, but to each individual customer at scale without using AI. And that's essentially what has helped us. We don't even spend a lot of time and money on social media. Not to say one shouldn't, but for beauty, it's very, very expensive. And what has really helped us is not just attracting new customers through the brands and products we have, but actually the retention of our customers is incredibly high, which normally for beauty is incredibly low. A part of that is because we're offering something people need, like who doesn't want to be able to compare prices, and they can find their personalized recommendations. But the main thing is throughout the shopping journey, we are personalizing the experience for each customer. And then we don't send emails saying, hey, these are the top shampoos. We're we know you suffer with oily hair and you've got short hair. These are the right products for you. So it's very seamless and it keeps the customer connected.
Got it. Thanks.
Yeah.
Go, carry on.
I was going to say, even with the emails, it can really be a lot of fluffing about to set it up with lots of CRMs and segmentation. So if you use an AI tool that allows you to do that, it frees up your team. They can focus on other things, and you can focus on growing your business.
And reduces the faff factor for sure, doesn't it? In terms of, because that CRM segmentation, if done manually, can be a bit of a nightmare.
Yeah. That's how we started off. That's how we built it in-house.
I'm sure there's lots of people in the audience nodding fervently as we speak, saying they're either doing it right now or they remember the bad memories of it. Thank you, Nidhima, so much. I'm gonna chuck this guest question out. It says TRB guest, so thank you, whoever you are. So fingers on buzzers, panelists. The first one that wants to take it, please do. And actually, please, a few of you jump in with your thoughts here. It's quite lengthy, so I'm going to read it verbatim. What are the panelists' thoughts in relation to how effective personalization is and how it differs when comparing B2C with B2B sales? For example, when selling B2B, it can be, and often is, less about emotion and more about specific business need or challenge. Anybody want to jump in there? Fingers on the mute button. Gareth, you're on mute.
Nidhima had her hand up. Look, I don't know how to do that on here. How do you do that on this? Oh, look, it's down there. Amazing. There you go.
Yeah, fastest finger first. But yeah, please, I would like several thoughts. So kick things off, Gareth.
Well, in terms of how effective it is, it's extremely effective. I think I've seen improvements in click-through rate for anywhere to 10 to 30% higher from personalized content recommendations.
Wow.
I guess the way to think of it for me is if you think about when a customer has their highest propensity to transact. So, like you're looking at a product, you're like, oh yeah, that's nice. When you actually go to shop and you're ready to spend money on that day, if the system knew that about you and could predict that actually your chance of purchase was higher in the next 15 minutes than it was for the next 7 days, then you can put all of your bidding budget and absolutely hammer that customer with advertising to make sure that they convert. And that's just one example of a personalized solution. Obviously, you can also show a relevant product offering that's based on their previous purchasing or by things they've been browsing or by similar purchasing habits of other customers. So it's definitely very effective. I mean, in terms of the B2B versus B2C thing, I can certainly see where the question's coming from, but I generally am of the opinion that even in B2B, you're still talking to a person. Obviously, it's more difficult on the data side because, you need to make sure it's the right person at that company that you're talking to, because are you talking to them as their individual in terms of how they normally shop on other websites, or are you talking to them as a kind of component of that company? And so the data piece is more challenging. But in terms of the actual personalization, I don't think it is. If you had the right data set, then whether you're saying we've got a problem that you've got a problem we can solve, which is going to be one message that's appealing to a B2B audience, or whether you're going for something like we're the best in market in your price range, are two very different propositions, and they're going to be more or less effective to different people at different times. So yeah.
That's an interesting point, because ultimately, yeah, B2C, B2B, they're still relationships, they're just different ones. Steve, your hand's up, go for it.
Yeah, I think what Gareth just said there is kind of what I was going to really talk about is we are at the end of the day humans who want to interact in a certain way, right? So whether it's a B2B channel or a B2C channel, there's still a human element required. A lot of my interactions with marketers, like you guys today, still has a human element, and also has you can connect on a human level in a way that can be personalized. Sure, the mechanics or the tactics are maybe different. Maybe in a B2B environment there's a lot more detail required, whereas maybe in a B2C environment there's maybe a little bit more emotional content related information available. But I do believe there's a way for marketers to relate to someone in a B2B framework on a human level as well, which also helps in that journey to be able to convert.
Thank you, sir. Nidhima, your hand's up.
I think basically, like Simon Sinek says, you have to really start with why. So when you're looking at B2B versus B2C, it's actually quite dependent on the size of the company. So if a company has, 5 products and not that much traffic, personalization is probably not going to give it a massive uplift, whether it's B2C or B2B, let's be honest. Then, even if they have 40 SKUs, it might not make such big difference. But then if you have a lot of traffic, or if you have a lot of products, or if you have both, then it makes a bigger difference for sure. And in terms of B2B, we, like, I have my second company, Beauty Matching Engine. When it was tested versus another company that was not industry specific, even though they had 3 years of data, for multi-million hits a month, they didn't outperform us within a month because the experience we provided was more personalized versus generic. So that's from a B2B angle. If we look at B2C on My Beauty Matches, it's a lot easier to do, because when you go B2B, in terms of the challenges, I can see the question. When you go B2B, the B2B company has to work with multiple solutions, kind of coming back to what Findologic was saying, Steve was saying. They have to work with multiple solutions all under one umbrella. It causes delays, it causes friction. You have to get approval from multiple parties. So although when you do B2B, it still affects the customers, the whole process of it can be quite challenging. Whereas when you're doing it B2C, you can do whatever you want. it's your company, you can build it in-house, you can work with a provider, and you can definitely see the uplift. So for instance, in our emails with My Beauty Matches, we saw open rates of like 40%. We saw click-through rates of over 20% because they're so hyper-personalized versus, when we're just using, let's say, MailChimp or something like that. And yeah.
There's some big numbers there that both you and Gareth have quoted actually in terms of those positive uplifts you can see. So thank you for sharing, and thank you TRB guest, whoever you are, for that question. I hope you feel like the three panelists there have answered that in a way that was useful for you. Annie, I'm going to jump over to you if I may. What are the key trends that you guys at Better Freud are focusing on in 2022?
Yeah, so I think going back to the storytelling, I think is a big thing for us. Why the customers are buying from you. I think giving that shopping experience, be it in your upsells or kind of clever things, adding to cart, just different things that are a bit unique, but also still tell your brand story. I think that's something that we're really looking at this year. I think sustainability is obviously a big one, and how that's communicated, because obviously from the kind of your whole company and how that is playing into it, it's quite hard to do everything all at once, especially as a small company. So we want to work out how we can communicate what we are doing and how we're going to move that forward. I think especially if we're looking at our customer base and we really want to target that younger customer, that is something that's incredibly crucial to them. And obviously for everyone really, but it's something that is a big focus for us this year. As a fashion brand as well, we're looking at our supply chain and how we can be much more reactive, how we can, I think we've seen with digital marketing that we've had so much more demand for our product, and we have maybe 3-month lead times, and then you've sort of missed the boat. So it's how we can really improve that, which I think a lot of companies are looking at, and bringing things a lot more in-house rather than being reliant on so many other companies, which can obviously affect this. And then the biggest one really for us over the next couple of years really is into international growth. We're very much a UK based company. I think about 70% of our customers are from the UK. So we really want to grow that, especially into the US, which is our second biggest territory. Something, again, as a small company, when you're being very focused on your margins, is offering returns and shipping and everything, where you want to be competitive. But obviously it is incredibly costly. So we're looking at things, so like for the US, if we can offer a US based address for returns and then consolidate those returns to come back to us, that's obviously cheaper, and it's a better UX for the customer as well. So yeah, lots of different things like that I think is on the horizon. And again, customer acquisition and customer retention, I guess, is always going to be the biggest thing, but really how we can grow the business going forward.
Are you shipping from the UK to the US?
Yeah, so we have one warehouse that's based near Heathrow, and we ship internationally from there. But obviously with Brexit and COVID,
It's a nightmare, right?
Yeah, there's been a lot of things this year, but then because of our sort of the territories that we sell them over to, some of them don't always warrant, like we can't always justify these solutions to have an international warehouse when it's such a small proportion of our revenue. So we really want to try and grow that organically first before looking at those solutions. And I think there are lots of different, like 1% changes that you can make to then have a bigger effect, but it's just, yeah, it's quite difficult.
Yeah, we would. The skincare brand I'm involved with, Scrubbed, our biggest market actually is the US. We're in 60 Nordstrom stores, so we have to have a facility on the ground. We're just on the move from North Carolina to Texas, but moving stock to fill our warehouse up in the States is just, the cost of it, the delays, the paperwork nightmares, and then, trying to do D2C in Europe, it's completely got more difficult, and customer experience has suffered as a result of that as well. So yeah, it's keeps you on your toes, certainly trading internationally, that's for sure. How many stores have you guys got? I know you've got the one over in Marylebone, haven't you?
Yeah, we've just got that one, and then we work
just that one.
Yeah, selection of wholesale customers as well. But we've, over the last couple of years, growing our ecom business was a real big focus, and it has grown 5-fold. So it's been amazing. But yeah, the US especially. But again, with it's sort of working out, if you are to have a warehouse over there, then kind of your split of product, what's going to perform better, and using a solution to work that out, but also how much you're producing. And then also for us, with this consolidated returns option, we'd have to be conscious of how often that's returning back to us, because we might only produce a small amount of something that's one of our exit price points. You might only buy sort of 20 to 30 units of something, and then if it's all just sat in a box waiting to come back to you, it's then also sales. So yeah, there's a lot to think about, and I think there is a big gap between being a kind of small to medium business to then really accelerating, and the amount of money you put into different areas and what's a focus.
Yeah, and yes, that sort of next step up can certainly burn through the cash, can't it, as well? So yeah, I know your store's on Chiltern Street, right?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, I haven't been over that way for a while, but it's lovely over there. A very lovely street for your brand, that's for sure.
Yeah, it's been really good. We've also just put our shop on to Shopify as well, so we're on Shopify Plus, so that's been something which is really good for our sort of omni-channel experience, because we can share stock a lot more easily, and also we offer like a click and collect tailoring service, which is a really nice sort of premium option as well. So yeah, it's been good.
Great. So continued improvements which enhance transactional and customer experience all at the same time. Thank you. Steve, I'm going to come back to you if I can. If retailers are listening to this and they're desperate to upgrade their omni-channel strategy, what do they do? Where do they look to deploy technology? Which ecosystem of partners do they engage?
I mean, great question. The answer is always you need to use Findologic. So if you have something that you want to talk about, I'm always available after that. In fact, Annie, you do Shopify Plus. We do a plugin. So that's just my shameless plug for Findologic today.
Absolutely, and why not?
But I mean, in general, look, I think the key thing is you have to find what's not working before that, you need to find what's the core things that are going to make your customers convert to sales. So a good example is, Anna, you talked about globalization, right? So if we do that, well, which technologies will enable you to do that in the most effective way online, right? That's something that is part of your goal for the next 24 to 36 months to be able to roll that out. And which partners can do that for you and with you, and enable that to be as seamless as possible for your customers, right? So that for me is the first thing: is what are your company goals, and what is core to those goals. I think you need to make sure that you have that in focus. As marketers and e-commerce managers for yourselves, I'm sure that you get many different questions from many different people in your organizations to say, why is this not working, or why is this not improving? But if you have your focus as to what your goals are and your priorities are, obviously focusing on that is always the key, right? So that's the first point. The second point is, in your customers experiencing what's breaking. So what's not working correctly, what's giving you big bounce rates. Those things are important for you to analyze. We talked about it. You talked about it again. Sorry, Annie, I'm talking with you as a good example, and also Gareth. I know that because of Gareth, because I work with him directly. Annie, your customer experience is more content led, right? It's because of your brand, and that's great. And there's many advantages of that. SEO for one of them. That's one of the big things. But the other thing is, online today, many consumers want to be able to have that rich personal experience, right? With Gareth and his website, there isn't as much rich content as yours. That's just the bottom line. But that's a different strategy. None of the two are either successful or not. It's just which audience you're speaking to, right? So in your case, SEO is a hugely important factor, right? So you would be looking for technologies to enhance that so that you can get people coming to your website based on that rich content that you're creating, right? For Gareth, it may be slightly different. It may be paid may be a bigger strategy for you in this regard, right? So it's just those things that I think you have to try and figure out where you're actually looking at your audience with, and which things are not necessarily measuring up to your expectations. And then the final thing is, I always believe that there is a base layer of testing required for everything. So, Gareth and I, we are going through a certain exercise at the moment with his website and our search solution, where we've tested something and it hasn't quite worked out in terms of his performance for an audience. And Gareth has been great about giving us all that wonderful detail. And actually, what is important is we've gone back and tried to assess why. And we're going to hopefully go through another testing phase in the next couple of weeks to see if there could be improvements in the customer journey. And I think that's really a good way to always look at how you can improve your customer experiences by testing. So yeah, those are kind of my 2 or 3 little anecdotes. Hopefully that's been useful to everyone.
No, very, very, very much so. And you mentioned Gareth, and I'm going to come on to you now, Gareth, if I may, and ask you if you could, share some advice really around what first steps for retailers should be, if they're looking to get started with AI to improve their e-com.
Cool. Yeah, well, that's a great question. I mean, just to pick up on Steve's point, I was thinking, because I come on to picking the right partners at the end of this question, but since you were talking about it, I mean, I think it's really important when you're thinking about tech partners to think over the longer term, because it's easy to think about tech like you're going to buy it and plug it in, and as long as it doesn't break when you're putting it in, then the problem is fixed. But that's not really a good way to think about it. It's much more of a partnership and a longer term relationship. I like to try and think you want to pick your tech partners because you think they've got really good developers, so their tech roadmap is going to lead to a place where you want to be, and also that they're going to work with you. They're not just going to be like, cool, you've given us the money and we've built what we said, so we're out, bye. And then you don't necessarily get the long-term benefit of, oh, by the way, we were thinking about your use case. Like, for example, the developers I work with on the website development in-house, we've got a third-party agency. And I love working with them because they think about the problems I have before I've even got to them. They were talking about me about some VAT implication we had for mastectomy bras. And I was like, oh, I'm so glad I'm working with you, because they're solving problems I've got before I'm even aware of them, which is definitely what you want in your tech partners. In terms of where to start with AI, though, I think it's a tricky problem. I think AI is a bit of a buzzword, and there's a lot of chatter, right? So when you're like Googling to try and find about AI and how it's implicated with retail, I think you end up with a lot of introductory articles, which are great for setting the scene, but don't really answer any of the actual questions you have in terms of how you want to use it in a business scenario. So what I find is good to help people think about it is to think about what AI is good at versus people. So AI is really, really good at categorizing things and finding patterns in things. And it's good at considering data sets that are not manageable for human brains. So you can give an AI, imagine a spreadsheet that's so big that anyone you gave it to would quit their job. And then it will go away and find segments, like it can find clusters of customers that are related by these data points that a person would never be able to find that pattern without months of work. But it can do that in real time with massive amounts of data. And generally, the more data you give it, the more useful the outcome is. So that's helpful for thinking about it, because you want to be thinking about the use cases. Like, where could AI help me? Where do I have a lot of data, but I don't have the time to go through it all? The other thing that's helpful to think about is how AI learns better and worse. So it's easier for an AI to come to a conclusion about a data set that is reduced. So instead of having, for example, every price point and the AI is trying to find out what's the most popular price or something, I don't know. Instead, if you group it into buckets, so instead of being like, here's all my customer data, be like, I'm going to reduce this particular variable to 3 particular options, then an AI will be able to find out, for example, if customers prefer black versus everything else compared to like every single color on the website. So one of the things we're looking at doing at the moment is grouping our products into groups of colors. So instead of trying to find a personalized solution so it will change the color of the products for every color, it's just going to be like, right, well, they're either a customer who likes black or they're a customer who doesn't like black. That will be much, much quicker to get to a realistic conclusion, because one of the other challenges of AI is the scale of data. So if you don't have enough data, then it's difficult for an AI to come to a conclusion in a realistic time frame. So then brands that are getting started need to be realistic about how much traffic they've got and how complex the data is that they're feeding to it if they're expecting to get a useful result.
Thank you for that. And stay on that word data. Nidhima, I'm going to come to you. And how are you using data to connect with your users in a seamless fashion?
So I'm sure everybody knows about the cookie law change. So when people come on the website, we basically use local storage. So there's no issues with cookies. And I think retailers or brands who are not doing that yet should switch to that for the e-commerce website. So that's how we collect a certain amount of data. The other one is we actually ask our users to input their own data as well, like through the beauty quiz. So we find out more about their profiles and their needs. And then the third one is just tracking data. So like any website might have, Google Analytics, you can see what people are clicking on, you can see what the conversion rates are. So you're basically tracking user behavior. So we do that as well. And then everything gets inputted in our database, whether it's through the email or through the website. We basically have a single customer data view. And then we have actually built our AI technology in-house. We are essentially a tech company first and a beauty company second. So all this data, whether it's from emails, whether it's from website, whether it's through partners, quick shout out, if anybody wants to partner with us, you can email me. And it all goes back in the single customer data view, and then we retarget customers. So that's kind of where our retention comes from. So it could be, emails, it could be when the customer comes back, what we recommend them on the product page, et cetera, et cetera. So that's essentially how we use data. With my second company, the way data is used is more for the clients. So the clients are collecting data from multiple sources, including physical retail. So because this is about omni-channel experience, I thought it'd be important to bring that up. So you can basically see what people are browsing online. That data is fed back to a device in store to the sales assistant. And then when the sales assistant advises the customer about products, or the customer is browsing, one of the products they would recommend to the customer is what was also recommended online and on email. So I think that's really, really important because, even if I shop, I don't know, a Zara or something, whatever I see in store is very different to email, which is very different to online. So it's really about bringing that all together and having the same experience no matter to where you are. The same way if I watch Netflix on my mobile or on my laptop or on my TV, I see the same thing everywhere. Yeah.
Got it. Thank you so much. Yeah. And I'm not sure I understand some of the changes that happened in cookies. I'm not sure probably some of our audience did as well. Is there an easy way to summarize the cookie change or not? Or is it too bamboozling?
I don't know if I'm going to get it technically right. I have a team that manages that, but long story short, before you could gather more data about your customers and where they've been and what they're doing because of the cookies, and now you won't be able to do that anymore.
Got it. That's actually a great.
But maybe somebody else should
That's a succinct way.
Who knows?
What do you want to add to the cookie thing?
Maybe Steve.
No, I would just add that this cookie data is something that we've been using for a long time. It's to be able to track what people are doing and interacting, and you can trace that back to even an individual profile, right? So we know that. To get around that now, you have to change sometimes your strategy to things like session data, right? So we talk about that in some ways. It's not relevant for every specific brand because they can't necessarily, but a good example is like something like Brand Alley, who has a membership to be able to log into. It's easier for us to be able to use their session data because obviously a member has to log into their portal before they can get their promotions. So it's those things that I think we need to try and figure out, but it will be all relevant depending on what the actual company is selling and what membership they have or viewers they have, right? We also look at, like you said, Nidhima, it's just the actual aggregate data, right? So now instead of AI being one-to-one, obviously we can do that in a specific way if we need to, but we're also looking about to be able to try and create more relevant results or experiences based on aggregated data, like you said in Google, right? So I think those things we're trying to move towards because it just helps us still personalize, maybe not as much, but at least we're having a personalized approach to try and make sure that we can get the best conversion rate.
Good stuff. Thank you, sir. We are coming into the closing 5-10 minutes now, so I'm going to ask each of you to close off with one question. Actually, I'm going to ask the same question of all of you. So, Steve, I'm going to kick off with you. It just gives the other three a bit longer to work out their answers as well. So, the question to all of you is going to be about customer is king, right? So how do you preserve a high quality customer experience at all times, across all channels? Kick off, please, Steve.
Wow. Yeah, Gareth's laughing. Thanks, Gareth.
It's just an easy one, you know, all
Yeah,
channels
just
all the
easy
time.
one.
No problem.
I can see all three of you looking very well, and probably doing some research on Google right now. So that's fine. I'll start off. I think that what you need to do is have feedback loops as the main point. For me, is the answer. I think that once a customer has a certain experience and you can see that that person's gone from, as example, Annie, from Google to your website, to then creating a product, to looking at a specific product page, moving that to a basket, maybe looking from their online or offline experience. You can measure that in many ways these days. Once you've got those the connected dots and you can see that that's working mostly seamlessly, that's great. But in every one of those experiences, there is an ability to be able to get a feedback or a test or an A/B strategy. And I think that for me is the most important way to be able to really kind of preserve that rich customer experience, which is always providing an opportunity to be able to get the test back and seeing those results and then pivoting from there. I think that would be my biggest message to us today. Find out what is working correctly. Keep that strategy, like Gareth says. Don't fix what's already, or don't try and fix something that's already working. And then the other thing is, if something isn't working, how do we try and solve it so that the customer experience can continue to improve?
Got it. Thank you, sir, as always, and thanks for your contribution to the panel today. Gareth, wrap up with that question for me, please.
I think I had three thoughts on this. The first is I wouldn't try to, I think it's unrealistic to expect to have a perfect customer experience in all channels, all times. So it's important to prioritize offering the best experience in the largest and most significant channels. Obviously, you need to offer a good customer experience everywhere as much as possible, but I think it's important to recognize that there will be areas that are less developed, and that's okay. Hit the big wins first. The other one then is to just get each channel, make sure there's clear ownership for each channel in the business, so that the owners of those channels have a clear strategic directive to enhance the customer experience in their respective domains. And if everyone in that channel is really loving and caring about the customer experience, then it's going to be optimized within that channel's remit. And then aspirationally, over the long term, you want to make sure the channels are all interacting to one another. If you're the type of business that has a data strategy that's sufficiently developed that you can really be aware of what a customer is touching at each point across all the different channels, omni-channel, then you can really start to make those experiences relevant to one another, which I think gives a better overall experience. But I think that requires quite a lot of technical infrastructure and investment. So it's something to work towards, I think.
Thank you, sir. And thank you again for your compelling insights added to the panel today. It's been great to work with you. Thank you. Coming over to you, please, Annie, some thoughts on this subject to close off your contribution.
I think as long as your brand narrative is there and that's what you're trying to translate, and it's trying to not be too clever with it necessarily, because you don't want to switch anyone off and then you've lost them. I think it's like offering the best experience you can and try things, A/B test things and make little changes, but try. You don't have to do everything overnight. And I think as long as your brand message is the same across all those channels and your customer knows that whether they go into your store or they go online or they ring you up, that they're going to have the same experience, or they know that they can trust that. And I think that's the main thing.
Got it. Well, good luck with that international expansion as well. And all the best to you and the team. Thanks for your contribution today. Nidhima, you're wrapping up the whole thing. No pressure. What are your closing thoughts on that question?
You'll be doing the wrapping up, but my closing thoughts are, I think it's really important to always come back to what the customer wants and needs and really make it about the customer. I totally agree with Steve that feedback loop is really important, which is what AI is good for, because it automates the feedback loop and it just, improves the performance of what's working better. But like for us, like we are helping time poor women find the right products for them at the best price. So we're genuinely helping solve an issue. And if there's anything else we could do, we would do that too. So it's really about just thinking about the customer. So obviously you're doing a business, you have to think about your numbers, but it's always going back to the customer for me.
And that's a beautiful ending. Always goes back to the customer. And I think that's probably the perfect sentence to wrap up on. That's session 2. That's e-commerce innovation. I'm sure you'll agree that our 4 panelists were fantastic. I'm sure if you did want to get in touch with any of them, you can find them on good old LinkedIn, and they'd be welcoming to your approaches, connections, and questions indeed. I'm answering for you there, guys. I'm assuming that's okay. But thank you, brilliant insight. And thank you to Findologic and Steve again for the sponsorship. That's it. We're taking a little break now. We're actually back at 1 o'clock for a lunchtime webinar today. So bring yourself a sandwich and a coffee and come and join us for in-store digital innovation. We've got a great panel lined up for you at 1 o'clock, but we're just taking a short break for now. All that remains to say is Steve, Gareth, Annie, Nidhima, thank you so much for your insights and for giving up your time in, I know, what are busy schedules as well. So thanks for that. So the audience coming back, see you at 1 p.m. And for now, have a good day.
Thank you. Bye.